Hi, I'm Peter Hill, and this is The D Word, the show where we talk dementia. Thanks for joining me for another hour of dementia chat and music. Can't believe we're already close to the end of November. Time keeps marching on. Now, during 158 episodes of The D Word, we've had some very original ideas. One thing we have never talked about are smart socks. Well, after we've heard from Garth Brooks, Zeke and Jacqui Arnold from Milbotics will be telling us all about them. Garth Brooks and I Can Be Me With You from the Fun album. Now, when I first heard about smart socks, which can monitor early signs of distress in people living with dementia, I knew I had to find out more. So I was delighted when Zeke and Jacqui Arnold, who are part of the team developing the technology, agreed to come on the show to talk about what is, to me, a most original idea. Before we get into the technology, though, where did Zeke's interest in dementia start?
Quite a few years ago now. So I was working actually as an engineer in defence. But at the time, my great-grandmother had dementia and she became quite aggressive. And that really set me on the path of trying to understand really how family carers primarily could be better supported through technology to manage some of those behaviours. Because I was seeing my grandmother going through that experience of having to care for my great-grandmother and really struggling, particularly with the agitation and aggression that I saw. And that's really where the idea for the socks came from.
And Jacqui, you've been involved in the care sector for a while, haven't you?
Yes, yeah. So I've got about 40 years of experience working in health and social care. So I've worked as a professional carer in care homes and also in training and development within social care. And then I was most latterly a dementia lead for an organisation. And I also have my dad's have experience of my dad who had dementia as well. So I have experience of caring and supporting my mum, who was caring for my dad at home. So experience as both a professional carer and personal experience as well.
Yeah, so there is nothing like the lived experience.
Exactly. Yeah.
And obviously add technology to the lived experience.
Yes.
You get where you're coming from. I mean, smart socks, first of all. I mean, before we actually get into how they work and the whole concept, what's the reaction bit of people? Because I've got to say, when I first heard of it's a little bit Star Trek, isn't it? It's a little bit...
Yeah. I can say a bit about the story. So it came out of a piece of research at the Bristol Robotics Lab, which is really a world-leading robotics research facility that's a partnership between the University of Bristol and the University of the West of England. And it was while working on that project that I met Jacqui, who was the dementia lead at an organisation that was attached to the research. And what I was doing was taking in different wearable devices to Jacqui's organisation and getting opinions on them from members of the care team. And what I was finding is that, wrist-worn devices that are so prevalent with sort of healthy people really don't work particularly well for people with dementia and a lot of other conditions. They can be perceived as stigmatizing. They're often removed due to discomfort that can cause additional agitation. And that's really how the idea of a sock came about, something that's very familiar and acceptable for the person, that they're more likely to wear and to want to wear, and that will collect data without them necessarily, being aware that it's even there. It's just part of their daily life and their daily routine.
Yeah, which is, it's very important, isn't it, Jacqui? That thing of, you put it on and it's just normal, just a pair of socks.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So we have the socks that just look exactly like a normal pair of socks. The only difference is that they have some ability to collect physiological data. So things like skin temperature and heart rate and the sweat response as well. And those three elements together are what help to identify whether or not somebody is becoming anxious and distressed. And so although they are smart socks, they actually look and feel just the same as any sock. There's a small package of electronics that will sit just above the ankle. And because of my experience in social care, I've been very, very clear that it needs to be comfortable and needs to minimise any possible skin damage to people. And so therefore the electronics, we're looking at having them covered in silicone, which is really, really soft and comfortable. And people shouldn't even know that they're wearing them. So although it sounds very Star Trek-y, the smart bit is really, what they do, the functionality of them. And, that the socks have been designed with comfort in mind all the way through the process. And I think for me as in my years of caring, I've seen so many people who become distressed and agitated. They're not able to express their needs. I'm sure so many people become distressed even before carers are able to notice their distress levels rising. So it's often not until somebody's anxiety really increases to such, a high pitch that carers, both paid and unpaid carers are able to recognise that. And then it often takes longer to help to settle and calm that person and to de-stress them. And it, that causes difficulties for the carers as well. And so the idea behind the socks is that the signals from the socks that show that somebody is having increased anxiety go through to an app that somebody would have on their phone. And that would send an alert to identify that somebody is becoming distressed, so that carers can become aware of this at a much earlier stage than, maybe they would ordinarily notice. And it's that early alert that then really helps carers to, find preventions for people and support for people at a much earlier stage.
Yeah, and I think tying into that, building a bigger picture around what that person's triggers might be, what forms of support are most effective for them, all of this will be provided through the app, which accompanies the socks. So really delivering a package of support for the carer so that they can better manage the behavioural symptoms in those sorts of settings.
UK Health Radio, the station that makes you feel good. UK Health Radio, the station that makes you feel good.
New from Elle King. That's Jersey Giant, the title track from her forthcoming album. Got some great guests lined up here on the D Word over the next few weeks, but there's always room for more. So if you've got a project you're working on or got a story to tell, we'd love to hear from you on social media at Radio TDW, on Twitter, or the Radio TDW Facebook page, where you find loads of useful information. And, of course, by email to tdwradio@gmail.com. I'm chatting to my guests, Zeke and Jacqui, about smart socks, which can detect early signs of anxiety, which can then be passed on to carers, as well as other health professionals.
Yeah, and also seek support as well. I know that as a dementia lead, and also from, as I say, personal experience, it was often hard to engage with GPs or, other clinicians to persuade people how much anxiety, people were experiencing. And particularly in paid care, carers don't always remember to write everything down. They sometimes see distress and anxiety as part of the condition, and it's 9 times out of 10 as a result of something that's happened rather than, due to the condition. And so the app is able to store that information so that people would be able to show clinicians, a timeline of this is the frequency of distress, this is the times that it occurs, this is what we think the triggers are. And so, it becomes a real support to the carer as well.
Yeah, so you're almost got an electronic diary, for want of better words, yes. Haven't you?
Yes, exactly. Yeah,
and I guess the clever bit is how you take all those physiological signs set thresholds for them and engage all that with the technology. I mean, that's got to be pretty complicated.
Yeah, that's really where the original research was focused. So out of that research project came a machine learning algorithm, so artificial intelligence. That's what processes the data and generates that early recognition of distress. And we're in the process of filing a patent on that at the moment. So obviously something that we are going to look to protect, given how valuable it is to us as a company.
Yeah, valuable to everybody by the sounds of it.
Indeed. Yeah.
Practicalities, Jacqui. I assume you can shove them in the washing machine like any pair.
Yes. Yep, you can. So currently they're washable at 30 degrees. We're hoping to develop socks to be able to be washed at 70 degrees, because for infection control purposes, then 70 degrees is what a lot of people wash them at. But they're certainly hand and machine washable. And we'll have a lifespan of around probably 3 months with normal daily washing. So that's what we're expecting.
We are working on removing the requirement to recharge the socks. So for that 3-month period, they won't need to be recharged. You'll be able to use them just as a regular pair of socks. Alongside that, connecting through to the Wi-Fi network. So they are Wi-Fi enabled socks. Obviously for compatibility with existing networks that people are likely to have in the home. So there'll be no additional boxes that you need to fit in the home. They will just connect through to the network through the app, and you'll be good to go.
Yeah, it still sounds incredible. You can do that with a humble pair of socks, as it were. I mean, widen it out a bit. Is it Milbotics company? Have I got that right?
Correct, yep. Milbotix, Milbotics.
And obviously you're looking perhaps beyond socks, and this whole area of kind of clothing that can, produce so much data for us.
Yeah, we are actually quite focused on socks, but we are looking at other avenues where we might provide value. For example, through analysis of gait to detect certain cognitive states in people, predict falls. If you can get somebody who has a health condition to engage with a wearable device, there's a huge amount of value you can deliver in terms of, managing their health and providing that remote monitoring to a clinician. So some really exciting prospects on the horizon.
Yeah, it sounds, very, very exciting. And I guess, Jacqui, from a care worker point of view, I mean, it's a kind of team approach, isn't it? The person with the socks, wearing the socks. Yes. And the carer's knowledge of what's going on. And it just can only help, can't it?
Yes, exactly. I mean, as I say, with my experience, then as a carer, it would often take me, 30 to 40 minutes to settle somebody who was becoming distressed. That's 30 to 40 minutes of time that if people are able to be settled sooner, then, you can be engaging in much more positive support for somebody. And it also means that the carer's stress levels are lowered a lot quickly as well. And the reason it took us that long was often because people's anxiety was really quite heightened before we'd noticed that somebody was becoming distressed. And as I say, even with my mum and dad, I feel that my dad, was becoming distressed for probably quite a lot longer than my mum was recognising, and so then sometimes he would become aggressive and he wanted to go out and, he started pacing around, and it was really difficult for my mum to manage. They were both in their 80s at that point. And I think had she have known sooner rather than later, she would have been able to have done things to distract him and to take his mind off things and to settle him. So it definitely has, the potential for benefits in people's own homes as well as in organisations. Whereas I say, I think the staff in organisations will be able to engage much more positively in activities with people.
Gabe Lee from the excellent Hometown Kid album and Never Rained Again here on You Get Your Health Radio, where if it's health related, we've got it covered with a series of great shows to listen to live at www.yougetyourhealthradio.com or at your leisure via our listen again and download pages. Also look out in the next few weeks as we build up to celebrating our 10th birthday. Back to my guests now, Zeke and Jacqui from Milbotics. We're talking about smart socks, which can detect early warning signs of anxiety, but also provide a valuable data record.
That's right, indeed. Yeah, I mean, the data has tremendous value, and we are working with about 25 care organisations in the UK to build that initial data set that's going to help us to, refine what we already have, but also identify new insights and develop new value for end users. So really important that we do build out these relationships and start to collect data early. Not only physiological data, but actually data about how well the socks are working, for example. Are they comfortable? Are they, really meeting people's needs? Very much user focused with what we're doing at Milbotics.
I think as well, I think that there's, there's quite a lot of people who, if they've lost the ability to talk and to speak, very well, then I suspect that there are many people that may be experiencing some form of distress that we're not even aware of. And so again, for those people, enabling the carers to understand distress, and that might even be that somebody's sitting in the wrong position and they need to be repositioned to make them more comfortable. But it can only help for us to be alerted to that sort of distress and be able to provide better for people's needs.
Yeah, and I think that ties in as well to the sorts of data that you might find in the environment, things like noise levels within residential care settings, in particular, lighting levels, temperature, all of these sorts of things can be a factor that leads to a person becoming distressed. So that ability to integrate the data that we collect, physiological data from the socks, with other types of data, again, presents those opportunities for really delivering a lot of value.
Yeah, most definitely. And it's got to be difficult for carers, isn't it? The things that you've just mentioned, Zeke. I mean, you've got to keep an eye on all those things and then think that might have an effect. So it's very, very effective to grab all that data in one place, to guide people as to, the possibility that it might be the noise levels, or, it might be, as Jacqui said, the wrong chair, the lights, or whatever.
Yeah. And there are the sorts of things that are suggestions in the app as well, as to suggestions as to what might the trigger be for somebody's distress and anxiety. So it also gives people, particularly unpaid carers, because, people enter this with usually no previous knowledge at all. So it helps to give carers suggestions as to what the difficulties might be that somebody's experiencing. And therefore also suggested types of support as well. And so we see this as something that is very much a supportive, process for people, rather than just identifying anxiety and distress.
The excellent Ward Thomas and changing. I'm talking smart socks with my guests, Zeke and Jacqui. I always feel that anything that can help carers and those people they care for work effectively as a team has got to be beneficial.
Yeah, exactly. And also bringing clinicians into that as well, so that GPs or, dementia practitioners are much more able to understand how the person might be feeling, what they're experiencing, what the carer is experiencing as well, because that's very much, should be, good care is about a partnership of care, and it should involve all of that. It should involve, somebody's physiological state, and their emotional state, and take into account, the carer's input within that as well.
I guess one of the payoffs is a reduction in medication, because medication is often used, sadly, in my opinion, for people that are in distress. Yes. I guess, one of the payoffs hopefully will be reduction in the use of medication.
Yeah, definitely, without a doubt. And that, that would be something that would be top of my list, whenever I used to support people directly, was looking at how we could reduce the amount of medication that somebody was on, particularly the antipsychotic type medication that's prescribed, and looking at what the issues are in the environment, or how we can change that for people. So I think having this much better targeted data from the SOCs, looking at, are there particular times a day, are there particular events that occur during that day that people find distressing, that all helps to target, to identify where the appropriate support should be, rather than, giving somebody a tablet, because that doesn't stop the situation from happening. It just, dulls the effect for the person. And, that's in my mind, not a positive solution.
Yeah, it's all about proactive management and prevention, ideally, treating those symptoms before they become too severe to safely de-escalate the person.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess, you mentioned GPs. Have you had kind of reaction? Because, my thinking goes that we're concentrating on dementia here, but, the data and the measurement techniques, etc., are applicable to, a whole load of health conditions.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So we're working for the trials that we're carrying out, the additional trials, we're looking at people with autism, learning disabilities. We've also looked at the potential for various mental health conditions as well. So it can really be useful for anybody that experiences distress, that is unable to express that in a way that, provides them with support. And, alerts carers to a heightened distress. So, yeah, we are working with a whole range of different people with different conditions. And that's something that originally, it was aimed at people living with dementia. And the more we looked at it, we thought, actually, yeah, exactly, this can be applied to so many different people.
Yeah, and we've had interest from healthcare as well. We're talking to an NHS ICB, a couple of NHS trusts. We've also had some GPs come and say we would absolutely love to have this capability and be able to deploy it. So I think it's coming down the line. We're not quite there yet, but certainly there is real interest from the NHS.
UK Health Radio, the station that makes you feel good. The station that makes you feel good.
Bruce Springsteen from his new album Only the Strong Survive, and his take on the Commodore's Night Shift. Smart socks are this week's topic, with my guests Zeke and Jacqui from Millbotics. It's a great project, but sometimes technology can act as a block to people taking advantage of what it has to offer.
Yeah, I think technology can quite expensive, but also quite scary, because when you see a smartphone and the amount of complexity in that, the sort of touchscreen interfaces, all those sorts of things, it can be off-putting to a lot of people that aren't that comfortable with the way that technology is going. But obviously, with socks, we're really rowing back on the complexity. It's something that doesn't have an interface. You can just put it on; it will automatically activate. So really minimising as much as possible the complexity of it, but also the need to change behavior from what you're familiar and what you're used to.
Yeah. I mean, we've designed the app so that it's as easy to use as possible. So an alert automatically comes up on somebody's phone, or there is a web-based version as well, that if somebody's got a laptop rather than a phone in their own home, and that the input is inputted just by people selecting various options, rather than, typing a lot of information into the app. And they would only need to type information if there was another explanation. So we give people various options for the possible triggers, and they're based on, evidence-based known triggers for people. And then if there is an other, so something that is very specific to that person, then the carer would have the option to type that in. But other than that, it's very much sort of pressing the different options, because I'm aware as well that, many people, my mum, other, professional carers don't have high levels of understanding and use of technology. It's still quite early days for a lot of people in health and social care. So it was really important to me to have something as easy as possible for carers to use.
Yeah, a lot to be said for keeping it simple.
Yes.
And then people are much more likely to use it. But,
yes.
Interesting, people could put personal triggers in there, which is, quite important as well.
Yes, yeah, definitely. Yeah, it has to be, personalised to the individual, because any valuable support has to be personalised, So, if one person particularly, is calmed down by listening to Elvis, as opposed to any other form of music, then, the carer would be able to put that specifically into the app, and that would then appear as a known support for that person. Whereas if we just left it at listen to music and the carer puts on the wrong music, then that could do the complete opposite
effect.
To distress people. So we're making it as easy as possible, but also personalisable if that's what's needed.
Yeah, I think it's great to set up a personal profile.
Yes, yeah,
that can be of really great use. Time's going to draw us to a close in a minute, but I never thought we would spend 25, 30 minutes talking about socks. To write the brilliant work that you're doing. And I think it's a demonstration of how technology can help in terms of dementia, because I come across a lot of people, technology, whatever. Whereas, there are real inroads being made in technology, which are really helping people living with dementia and carers.
Yeah.
So true. And we owe massive thanks and gratitude to some of our partners and supporters as well. So we're funded by Alzheimer's Society, UK Dementia Research Institute, and various organisations that have been supporting us with the development of the product. So big shout out to them for obviously helping us get as far as we have. We couldn't have done it without you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very important, isn't it, to have that kind of backing, and have that kind of backing from the right people and the experts to know you really are going in the right direction.
Yeah, exactly. And if people want to find out more, we're going to start a newsletter, so they can always contact us through the website. So that's contact@milbotics.com. So, they would be able to look up the website and go onto our mailing list if they wish to, and subscribe to that, so they can keep, up to date with the progress and what's happening.
Yeah, I guess it leads itself possibly to some sort of forum as well for, carers perhaps, using the products and how they're getting on with it.
Yeah, exactly. And just, the use of technology and other, other ideas. I think once people start adopting forms of technology that they see as being useful, then also thinking about, well, what else might be useful then? And as I say, that's where we're already starting to look at how we could refine, what we're doing, and very much built on what people need rather than what we think they want. So it's very important to have that, that interaction with people to see what really works and what is really needed.
Yeah, we'd love to hear from people. I mean, what their thoughts are around the socks, other areas where they could benefit from help. We obviously want to develop as a company, but at the same time, we want to ensure that people with dementia or affected by dementia are being supported in the right ways. And certainly technology is one way that we can provide that support. Yeah. So we're all ears.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's great. You can, you almost form a community around a pair of socks, which is an incredible achievement, I think.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's been a real pleasure, Jacqui and Zeke. Thank you so much. I wish you every success in what you're doing. So I think it's, again, I say this to everybody, keep on doing what you're doing. There are some great projects out there. Yeah. And as technology advances, I'm sure there will be even more greater projects that will come with that. But good luck with the socks. I think it's a great idea.
Really appreciate it. Thank you for the opportunity to speak about them. Yeah. Cheers, Pete.
My thanks to Zeke and Jacqui, and I wish them every success with Smart Socks. And if you want to find out more, then take a look at the website, milbotix.com. That's all for this week. Thanks as always to Angela, my production assistant. Next week, my guest will be dementia campaigner Tommy Dunn, who was diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's at the age of 57. So until then, thanks for listening and take care now.